Berman. I'm one of the software developers at Instantiations. And one of my jobs is to do tooling for the editor. And so we've kind of been on this push to, we're kind of focusing first on the editor, and we'll kind of take it out a little bit. So just as a reminder for folks who don't know, that last release, we kind of really revamped our editor. We there's an open source project called Scintilla that if you've ever used Notepad++ or a number of popular editors and IDEs, that's the component that's inside there. And they provide a lot of capability. They've been around a long time. So we've wrapped it and last release and kind of got it in. We still maintain our legacy editor. Don't really enhance it much, but we keep it working. And so the two can live side by side happily, as far as we know so far. And so for last release, the basics was get syntax, color highlighting, and very few visuals if there was time. Which, to be honest, after getting it in the environment, inspectors and browsers and everything, there wasn't lots of time. So this release is all about taking it out for a spin, kind of giving the story about why this was an important move for us. And so the focus is going to be on code analytics section, but I will talk briefly about some of the stuff leading up to that, a few of the smaller features, and so most of this is going to be a demo. So I'm just kind of wanted to brush past where we were, where we're going now. We've got some new refactoring stuff I'm excited to show you, and so I think it'll be a pretty good demo. So the part that's not easily demoable is just the general performance improvements as compared to last release are very significant. And one may say, and rightly so, well, Seth, it's there's 5 to 8 lines per method, right? Which even if we'll say, okay, well, maybe not that, but even if it were 40, well, what's the big deal with performance of the editor? And so actually it turns out that we use the editor, its ability to hold the state of the tokens in the document as our mechanism, our primary mechanism for actually analyzing the source. And so, it's not just parse trees now, because parse trees can be difficult. You're typing along and you haven't completed an expression, so you don't really get a parse tree unless you can prune it or do some fancy stuff such that you have a completed expression that's parse tree friendly. And so this acts, the best analogy is kind of like an XML document. Like a parse tree is very much like a dome, in terms of its build. And our parser works more like a SAX parser. So it's event driven and kind of builds as it goes, and as a result it's very friendly to just the fact that things aren't complete, and because it's scanner based, it can more or less figure out where it's at even if there are mistakes along the way and things like that. We use some of the new algorithms from Scintilla for actually getting us in closer contact with the actual Scintilla control. So like their text buffer we can actually reference, and in a nice way where, because internally they'll store it in split vectors and things that are very internal representations, but they've got nice APIs to present it to us as a kind of a safe character buffer, which we can use for various kinds of algorithms requiring scans of large pieces of data, but you're just looking for something very specific, and you don't want to suck in the whole document just to find this thing. So these kinds of things. So lots of performance improvements. So now I'm going to begin to kind of transition over to the demo portion. So the first part. So I'll open up transcript here, and we'll go to our new editor theme. So what's this all about? Well, with all the new visualizations, it becomes important to be able to tweak those, not just themes in general, but you want to be able to see what these are, and this serves as a basis because for other possible language support, and getting it, think JavaScript editors or something like that, where maybe for we haven't had a concrete plan yet, but when we everything in here is classified as a class, an argument, a selector, whatever. There's now all these classifications because we reflect on that analysis. But that means if we provide new support for languages, then we have something to map them to, so that they can, a JavaScript class will map to our class or whatever. We now have many more tokens that we can classify. So we do have themes. We've now updated many of our themes. There's there's something like that. You can see the folding all the margins are. You can color the call tips. Here's an updated Dolphin editor. Now, obviously, some of these visualizations don't exist in Dolphin, so we just made something up. This is a running joke for probably, I don't know, what do you think, John, 15 years or 10 years, something? So I guess you could call it, maybe one day this will be like the retro dark theme. I don't really know.
I think we also have to change the font to be more retro.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. I apologize. As long as we're making a joke out of it, we might as well go for it. But actually, strangely enough, during development, this was very helpful because I only had two things to deal with when I wanted to ensure that all the visual effects were using the theme rather than their own thing as it started off being. So this was kind of my debugging theme. So we did a couple of Pharaoh themes. So this is the Pharaoh Blue theme for 3.0. And then we've got the Tango theme. You can see like the args we can italicize. I'll kind of show some of the styling we can do. I wanted to do some more, but I ran out of time with some of the other things. I guess this is technically another joke that's been in there for a long time. I did get rid of Christmas, but I think that was the only one so far that I got rid of. So it's simple, and these just have been in there for a really long time. Some of these probably need to go once we actually revisit some more modern themes. So anyway, it's all themable now. Every visual effect is themable. So now I'll kind of show you, just check the time here. I'll just kind of show you what, how you go about actually customizing the environment. Because something, I think it was ultimately a mistake where before I had everything, well, I'll just show you with code completion, for example, where in order to actually configure colors, it was this kind of awkward, just go to the look and feel. And it's still here because this was the only one that didn't get carried over. So you have these kind of background, foreground, this, that. You kind of go through, you click them. Of course, you have no preview, so you ultimately don't know what this is going to look like until you look at it. So I kind of wanted to move away from this, especially as we started introducing all these new visualizations. I just didn't want this list thing, felt really awkward. So I went to more of this point and click. So you get the visualization, and so for example, let's look at selection. So I'll click on that's the primary selection, and now you see that actually filled in there. And now you say, okay, well, what can I do with this? Well, you touch that, and now what you'll get is a custom kind of box, and they're different for each visualization. It depends on the visualization. And so you can say, well, the first thing I want is I want the foreground to show through. I don't want this kind of Windows-themed blue-white thingy. So you could do that, and once you apply, now you can see that the green from the comment is kind of showing through. You can also do alphas, so there, you can, and you'll see in live up on the top right there how it's what it's approximately, or what it is going to look like. And of course, we've got the slider bars, so you can actually do it, but you, just to quickly get you where you probably wanna go, you can just click it and you have our color dialog, which gives you gets you somewhere quick, and then you can just kind of tweak it from there.
Do you also have the other color schemes like saturation, hue, and, not here, this is RGB, but there's this brightness.
Yeah.
brightness,
Yeah. No, in fact, I want a better color dialog, because I think that is, yeah, so, yeah, so,
Hue, saturation, and brightness.
yes, yeah, so, no, I think that would be helpful, and, for folks especially, and I'd like this to be editable too, so you can just kind of type in, 1A FFO if you're kind of building from a known template. So there's more plans to facilitate actually building these themes other than just kind of the point and click and then tweak. But the nice thing is, once you've sufficiently, screwed up and you want to go back to the default, you can just press default for a specific item and it'll go back, or you can reset completely. You will notice that we now got this kind of blue background going on, this for the highlighted line. And so it gets its own, custom deal going on, so you can change that. And once you say apply, it's all open editors will have already applied this. So we'll go back to the default. For breakpoints, you'll see, this is what our breakpoint one looks like. So you can see, not only can you change colors and alphas, but you can also change the, if you just want it to be boxed, for example, and you don't want, any sort of stuff in the middle. You can also make a dotted box, and that's done by varying the alpha and the outline alpha. They kind of stagger. And we've got, so here's our debugger highlights have now come in. Call tips are an interesting one, so that you're kind of seeing foreshadowing of an action list call tip, which I'll get to. So, and in that case, you can not only vary the various colors, but you can also vary them by fonts if you want them to be smaller, or you want a different font in there. So basically, the bottom line is every single customization or every style is customizable. Even independently at the various syntactical styles, you can say, yeah, I'd like that to be italicized or bold, or even a different font if you want, or anything like that. So it's all been exposed now. So the next thing, so with that being said, the next thing we'll go to is bracket matching. So in last release, we did character styling bracket matching, which is still available, but by default now we use kind of indicator underlays. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch over to kind of the place we'll hang around for the code analytics and all this stuff. So let's do order collection. We'll go to that's good.
Seth, what did you just do there? I mean,
Oh, the drag and drop?
Yeah.
Or the
right.
camp? Okay, so yeah, so I just say OC for order collection, and then I would just drag and drop. And if I held down control, it would be references to order collection.
Oh.
And if I just let go, it's the browser. Didn't you read the documentation? Okay, so, but good question. Okay, so there's now it's, Mom, can you see that? So now it's kind of this underlay, and then one of the new things we added for bracket matching was the fact that oftentimes when it's off screen, you're kind of, especially in a long method, and you're like, well, where is this thing? And you kind of go up, and now you get this margin indicator, because as you scan, as you go up and down, you want to know. Same thing going down this way, you say, okay, where is it? And we'll pretend there's a lot of source in between there, and you're kind of trying to find it. And that's kind of a subtle styling, so it's not always obvious, so that helps with that. And then we have the same kind of concept in this direction. So you see that the left part went off screen, so now you get this kind of bracket marker to show it. Another big pieces are comment folding. So as you can see here, comments are now foldable. In addition to that, there's a number of ways to expand it. You just double click, that'll do it. And it's integrated into most kind of algorithms. So for example, if you need to find old element, you see it automatically knows that it's hidden. So it needs to first uncollapse it and then kind of highlight it. And so there's lots of options for comment folding to include auto collapse. So if you want code folded here, so let's say, well, first we'll give it a stylization so we can tell that it's folded. And then we'll say auto collapse is, I just want to auto collapse the first method comment. So that means, well, we'll go up here for a moment. As I scroll through, you can see that all of these are being pre-collapsed. It's because oftentimes they're very long and you can't really get to your source. And if you don't like that line, you can definitely turn it off. There's just no virtual text API that I would really want to kind of do the ... kind of thing at the moment. So we have to get to that. So next after that is, well, another thing we did was for, I'll go ahead and, let me this. For comments, kind of the typical thing that happens is you kind of start typing a comment, and then you'll go to you'll press enter, and it'll actually put you there. And so now, which is not the typical thing you see in VA, people typically align it like that, and then they come here, and then they press enter, and they expect to be back where they should be. And so that, now it detects that it's in a comment, so it'll say, you know, a multi-line, and then I'll press enter, and notice that it column aligns, and then when I press enter again, it'll back out, so I can just keep going. So it keeps the flow nice. So let's look at.
Excuse me. What happens when you copy the text? What's the filler in there? Is it a tab and a space or something like that?
Oh, in the you mean between here and
yes.
Oh, let's see. Oh yeah, it's a tab. Yeah, it's a tab. It is a tab. Oh, yeah, tab in the space. Yes. Okay, so we'll do code analytics is almost up. So let me just briefly do just to show the highlights to our senders and references and all that kind of stuff. Yes, you can see that better actually. So you see that primary match followed by secondary matches, and we put in some algorithms because Scintilla will just by default blend if you put selection on top. We put in algorithms such that these things jump out of the way of the primary selection, so I can do that and it still looks nice. Or I can do, we've got even column select, and and those kind of internally are just undrawing themselves in those sections.
You use fixed size font for the code?
Yeah. Fixed size, well, I personally do. But
Because if you have, for instance, italic in the middle, then all the font.
The
will
column
be different.
selection won't work. Is that what you mean?
Hmm?
The column for the column selection, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, the
in
column
order
selection.
to work, you need to have fixed size font, else it won't work.
yeah, I personally use fixed size fonts in there, but yeah. So now for the code analytics, because I think we're at about 10 minutes. So let's go to here. And the first thing I'm going to show is, well, let's rename variables. So we're going to do this. There's a number of ways to do this. You can right click and there's a new refactoring, and it's instant rename, which you see also has a selection shortcut key. So you see it's highlighted here, so I can say, an element, an index, a collection. Now the second part to doing this is not just the visualization, but the conflict resolution. So now I'm going to type element. Uh-oh. What's wrong? So we see it crosses it out. It flags the temp decal region, because remember, this could be a 40-line method. It's way up top. You could have started anywhere. And so it flags that region, so actually if you had to scroll up, you could easily see it. And then you see kind of what's happening here. It's putting a margin marker there, so if you had to scroll up, boom, there it is. There's the conflict. You could even put your mouse over and it'll say, well, there's in line 10, the name conflicts with an existing arg. Okay. So then you say, okay, well, I'll call it elements. All right, so now it's still mad. So now you say, well, what's going on? So you highlight over it, and it says name conflicts with existing instance variable. Define an ordered collection. So then now you know, instead of later, that there's going to be an issue. And the nice thing is, all these movements are being captured as a single undo. So if I press escape, it all goes back. And even if I do one more undo, everything is changing back. Minus the cursor, everything is changing back into groups. And so that's that part. So it flags any of them, so I could do dependents, it would know, or pool dictionaries or instance variables or whatever. The next one is for unused variables. You want to be able, they're really hard to spot unless you're using tools like small lint or something, if you use those tools, and then if you are filtering out your rules. Because there's a lot of information in tools like small lint presented to you all at once. So what this does is, and I'm going to show you the action list call tips now, where it flags it as unused. So you see it's unused, but now you see this little button. So then you can click it, and you'll see that, well, what would you like to do? Would you like to remove it? Or would you just like to have it go through all of them and remove all of them? And then once you're ready to make a selection, you can use the keyboard as for actual up and down as well. You just double click. Okay. So undo, and I'll show even for even for something where it knows that, okay, well, if that's the last one left, I can just get rid of the whole temp section. It doesn't need to be there. All right, so that's that one. We've also got, I'll do a temp here, and then I'll say, okay, well, pretend it was used later. And then we see a little flag. And that flag is going to say the local's read before it's written. So you're basically using it before it's, now obviously it's something in Smalltalk, it's nil, but it's still an indication that you're probably heading for trouble. And the next one, likewise, would be equals 3. And that's perfectly fine, but then you don't do anything with it, so what's the point of it really being there? So you spot these things all over the place, and it's really hard to see these things until later. So I think my favorite one by far would be the temp declaration. So we'll start with a temp, and we'll say, okay, well, it's not defined. So you can go up and define it like you normally do, but you're in the middle of thought, so you want to say, well, I just want to define it. So you can use code completion. It says, well, declare it. What it does is puts it in the innermost scope, but then offers locations on all possible scopes where you could put it. So if you don't like it there, typically you do, but if you don't, you just press like up. We'll press up, and then you can rearrange it. If you want to, and so you can see. And then you can also just use your mouse. If you happen to be mousing and scrolling, they kind of snap into position. You see the little hand there. And once you've decided, well, let me go back to the, now these are all movements that are being tracked. So once you decided that, if you don't like that, you press escape, everything goes back. That includes your horizontal scroll bar, your vertical scroll bar. The whole point is to get you exactly back to where you were, so you minimize these context switches. And it commits by just pressing additional characters. So the flow, I'll do a few temps just to show you. The flow becomes very easy. It's something like this, and you say colon equals 3. A new temp, colon equals 4. Another temp, colon, it's oops, colon equals, so on and so forth. So you're not going back up and trying to do it. It's integrating into your workflow, which is what we're really looking for. There's another refactoring called pushdown. So in this one, we'll say that here we've got a temp, and we define it, but we put it up one there. And it's not used anywhere else. So you see here, there's this little gray squiggle. And the gray squiggle says, well, this isn't a big deal, but if you want, you can push it into an inner scope. And so then you see this little button here, and it says push down. And same mechanism, right? And so along with, and now I'll do kind of the larger, just to show you how flexible the actual parser scanner is. Do one of these, and I'll say temp to, and I'll do another one, and I'll say temp 2. Okay. It's good here, it's good there, it's not good there. And you see why. Because now, and from here up, it's no longer good. Okay? And you're seeing that all visually very quickly. And you can still hover over and it will tell you what the problem is, but it's kind of obvious at this point because it's all in your local view here. And however, I noticed that, for my own usage, sometimes I'm doing this as a result of refactoring. And so I still wanted to allow it to commit sometimes because I'm really doing multiple operations and I don't want it to dictate my workflow. I want to, I say, I know that's going to be an issue, so let me just go ahead and do that and then I'm going to remove this stuff. And check time here. And so there's a bunch of those going on. We've got, the last one is the type analyzer. So in this case, well, I'll just do as float. Okay, so there's something going on. So I hover over it and it said computed receivers do not understand this message. And then I click on this and it's going to tell me, well, these are the computed receivers. And then I'm going to say, well, if I need to browse one, I'll pick one and double click and go browser and so on. So how is this really working? Well, you can see here, probably by the time it got sent elements, it could pretty much figure out the class. It's starting to type narrow at that point. But this is one of the most difficult things, and blocks, of course, make it very difficult. But thankfully, we use the semantics of special selectors because they get special byte codes created, and those semantics actually help with the type reconstruction. So if true, if false, we actually treat that as up-branching, and that those blocks, they may be conditional, but they're evaluated there or not at all, not stored off and then evaluated later after the point at which you want to know what this thing is, because that gets really tricky. So we think that'll be really useful. It's not so much I'm going to type out something and see if it works, if I did it right. It's more of I'm refactoring stuff around. I'm moving. I had this temp and it was assigned this, and then I'm moving this code. I'm making things shorter, and you'll just notice that it'll kick in because you're making a mistake. And so that's what it's really there for. It's not really to say, well, this is the exact type of this thing. It's really there for when you start refactoring, these kind of mistakes, all the analytics I just showed you, really start kicking in, and it can really save you. I've been saved from at least 4 or 5 throughout the last 8 months of some really hardcore ones I can remember, just the ones that I actually remember saying, gee, that would have been a DNU, and I'm not sure if I would have caught that. And I gotta make a test for it, but that's a tricky one. And so it can help, and when it does help, it's great. And so I think that we're out of time, but that's all I really have to show at the moment.
Just a comment, now you see the text editors and all this stuff, it's just like all domain where you can just kind of follow your life there. And still,
Yeah.
there is a lot will be to do.
Yeah.
Very nice work, yes.
Oh, question.
So you've obviously got this camel case summarizing OC order collection and just any class. And basically, do you find that is always right and never clashes with some other thing you would be typing, or it's very occasionally?
It's mostly always. In fact, I do. It's called shiftless camel case, so you don't need even the capital letters. So like read, write, stream.
Right. Okay.
And it just heuristically gets it.
Yeah.
And so even for and the code completion, it kind of knows in a lot of cases what the receiver is, which of course helps. But in the event that it didn't, as ordered collection. So it's not quite there, but at least it's in the visible view.
Yeah.
So then usually my thing is, if it's a long thing like that, I'll do the camel humps, and then I'll kind of just type any remaining characters, and it'll pretty much get there. So yeah, it gets really fast once you as sort of, it.
Yeah. I was simply wondering whether it had any tendency to clash with something you wanted to type that just happened to have the same letter.
No, in fact, when I was doing that algorithm, because it's got a backtrack,
Yeah.
and those backtrackings are expensive. And so I had to kind of analyze, I loaded up a fully featured image and kind of did an analysis on what the maximum number of backtracks would be, which is kind of these collisions. And it was like 2 or 3. It just seems to work out that way.
Okay, good.
Do you do anything about does not understand catches?
Yeah, for the type analyzer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to, and that's unfortunate because that hurts your ability to type narrow. But once you do spot something that when you say, oh well, it could be this thing, and this thing, and that thing has a D and does not understand. And also if you're showing a browser where that class you're in has a D in it, then that's a problem because you'll do self, some proxy method, and you don't want to flag it, because every method would be flagged if the thing were a proxy. And so yeah, we have to, and that's unfortunate because that keeps us from being able to narrow. Well, it's unfortunate from the point of view of type analysis, not engine. So yes, that is handled, and it's just kind of an unfortunate property from the point of view of trying to do this stuff. Good question. Walk.
Why did you call it an editor talk that you gave today? Because obviously the editor was the starting point, but the real impressive stuff you showed us was code analytics and tool support, which of course is bound to the editor. But in the end, I mean, this is great. I expected something on the editor, but I saw a lot more.
So I misnamed it, is what you're saying. That could
No,
be.
but it's Smalltalk editor. I mean, you have this the text editor with all the styling and interactions and look and feel, and then on top of that you build a specialized which for the Smalltalk, right? So I mean, take another language and then you will need to implement other tools for completion and different kind of analytics and highlight and other stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's the name is good, the Smalltalk editor. It's not the text editor and not Java editor, it's Smalltalk editor. And there's certain features which you need to Smalltalk.
Well, it's certainly not what I expect from an editor. There's a lot more than that. So I was wondering, why does this guy talk about an editor? Because we're not, it's nice to have colorful letters, but the essence is something completely different and so much more than it.
I'm not sure how did you name this descriptives? So you open something?
Oh, I'm sorry, say that again.
If you, for instance, when you open a window to some action, what do you call it?
Oh, the action list call to action?
Action list call, right? Is it simply standard? Or is it,
Oh, well, it's from, yeah, I mean, it's an emulated list that, you mean from the point of view of,
if I would want to introduce other things in my own text editor, could I, is it easy to extend or is it,
it's easy for me to extend.
yeah?
Yeah, and that's a good point, is that kind of with all this, because we redid the lint engine, and now it's all this, but it hasn't been exposed yet in a way, and it could be, and that's important. It's that, once you start exposing out, like, I mean, you gotta put a lot more thought into that, and I wasn't ready quite for that.
Because the reason I ask is I have done with Unwillig style text editor for tools,
Oh, yeah.
which has nothing to do with coding, but it might be very useful to insert this hypothesis to I don't know, re-implement or
Yeah.
even improve on it.
Yeah, I mean, half of it's in Scintilla because, well, basically like that button is just the special character, ASCII character 1. The up button is the ASCII character 2.
All right.
You know, so they kind of interpret, and then I get some sort of callback if one of those is clicked. And then they have something where you can say, well, from the range from here to here, you can turn that a different color, which is what that highlight, you know, as you select something from a list. That's me saying it, but it's really just a string. And I had to create kind of an object abstraction to make it appear as if, and work with it as if it was a list. But yeah, it's just a dumb string that you're like passing it into Scintilla.
John was mentioning that there are videos on the Sensations website. So are there videos of these features?
No, in fact, we were just talking about that the other day, that
Yes.
it's time to
I think
look
this would be
in.
just great because it doesn't exist right now, and I would love to show especially the temp positioning stuff. It's really innovative. And
Cool.
I would love to show that to my Java friends. So
Cool.